What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven here with continued coverage of Season 6 of r/pogoraids PokeDraft. Now, there is a lot of information out there on PokeDraft, graciously covered by all of the people that help to run it. You can find a link to an Excel sheet in the video description that has all of the information that we are going to be discussing today. There is a lot of cool info in there. You can see every Pokemon's score based on its average placement in the draft, and then how that score compares as just the top 5 draft pods, and then all of the competitive draft pods as a whole. For my Season 6 draft breakdown, I am joined by none other than David, winner of Season 5 and Season 4. David, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for the warm welcome. Happy to be here. I hope I can be of some help.
You are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to PokeDraft, so that's why I really wanted to get you in the booth here to discuss this draft. Now, let's just go ahead and get started, because I know you've got a lot of thoughts that you can share with us, and I don't want to waste any time, so let me just go over exactly what's going to be on screen here for everyone following along at home. Here are the drafters in their draft order, and everybody's going to get 10 picks, and then the wheel, and then 10 more picks, all that same stuff. But what we're also going to be looking at on this draft sheet is the pick number, and then the total rank. I guess it's easier to explain the average draft pick first. We're going to see the average draft pick of that Pokemon, and then that will correlate to that Pokemon's rank. So just whatever has the lowest average draft pick number in order. And then after that, we'll see its steal or reach number, which is basically how that number compares to everything else. For Mewtwo Classic, this is pretty straightforward. It's pick 1, it's rank 1. If you look in the top 5 pods, it's still rank 1, so that's going to have a steal reach of 0, because pretty much everybody can agree Classic Mewtwo is number 1.
I mean, it offers the best roll compression in the game. Maybe like tied with Moltres, but if I had a choice, if you're number 1 pick, you're going to take Mewtwo. It just makes the most sense.
That's the thing. And if you have a choice, which the number 1 drafter does, between any other Pokemon and Mewtwo, you pick Mewtwo. There's not really much to say. We can move on to that number 2 pick, which was Moltres. And this is, right away, we see a deviation here. So just to kind of explain what's going on, this is Moltres, and it's the second pick, but it's ranked 3rd because its average draft pick is actually 3.3. So should Moltres be 3rd? Is this crazy? If you're second pick, should you be picking Moltres? What do you think, David?
I think you should be picking Moltres. I know that the index indicates that it's being taken 3rd in a lot of rounds.
But can you possibly win? If you're second pick and you take Moltres, can you possibly win a draft? Is that possible?
I don't know. Maybe you should ask me from last season.
Of course, I'm referring to the fact that David himself did draft Moltres second last season, and we see that reflected in the top 5 rank and reach. The top 5 definitely agrees with the Steven League here, and I have to agree myself. Maybe that's a little bit results thinking, because the next Pokemon that we're going to see, Crawdaunt, is also really good, and we're really just seeing these two swap places in different pods. But Moltres' coverage is really terrific, and I just wanted to shout you out there that your Moltres helped you win last season. But anything crazy really going on in these first 4 picks? These first 4 picks, I feel like, are pretty much a lock, with Moltres and Groudon sometimes switching places here.
This is 100% not a surprise. After Moltres, Mewtwo, Groudon, those are gone. Kyogre is, it's the strongest water type in the game.
Yeah.
Water's usefulness is kind of, I don't know. It's a little suspect.
It's up to the season. It could be super useful.
It's
Claydol
such
could
a
come
strong
out.
Pokemon. Yeah, strong
So,
Pokemon that if you do take Kyogre first, you don't need to really take any other water types.
also very true.
So it helps conserve picks.
I think regardless of what you're thinking about for the season, these are pretty clearly defined picks here. So one thing about these first three picks as well is they really help you cover the Pokemon that you can always expect to see in a PokeDraft, namely Machamp and Alolan Raichu. Moltres for the Machamp, Groudon for the Alolan Raichu, and then Classic Mewtwo doing double duty, which just kind of cements it, I think, in my mind as an insane first pick. Kyogre doesn't have that same luxury, but it is just a really good Pokemon, and like you said, if you draft that, you don't have to draft any other water type Pokemon. You're kind of covered there.
Right. And Mewtwo has an added bonus of being good against Gengar,
Okay.
being the best
Comes
Gengar
up.
counter. Gengar has, I think, appeared in every season of draft thus far.
Really?
Every
Okay.
season of pogoraids draft, actually, I think Gengar has made an appearance. It's a very common T3. Groudon is also a pretty effective counter into Gengar, so there are two advantages
True,
there.
true.
For Moltres, it's obviously the top fire type, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of raid bosses weak to fire. Actually, I think it's maybe like a third of raid bosses are weak to fire. I don't know. I'd have to list them off, but
Yeah.
like it's a big chunk of raid bosses that are weak to fire. So Moltres is very useful for those reasons. And then as you said, Kyogre. I don't know. Water.
If you're fourth pick, are you taking Kyogre?
I was fourth pick. Would I take Kyogre? No.
Really? Okay, so what do you take? What do you think is right after Moltres and Groudon?
Yeah, I would probably take Giratina Origin.
Okay, okay. And I wasn't sure. So we do see Giratina pop up after Roserade. I wanted to talk on your pick, Honchkrow, as well. But maybe we should be talking about these other top picks here first. So Giratina Origin, you are thinking at potentially the number 4 spot. Now, we see Giratina has a rank of 12 or 10, average draft pick 12.3. But you're thinking it might be higher up there just because of the Gengar and the Alolan Raichu?
I think that is so strong
Yeah.
that if you take it, you do not need any other dark or ghost
Yeah.
types on your team. It can easily 1v1 Raichu.
It's so tanky.
If you have Fog into a Focus Blast Gengar, you can easily 1v1 the Gengar. Those are two very common raid bosses. I like the conservation of picks. Like if you can take one pick to do something that you might need to spread across like 3 or 4 Pokemon, which is something I had to do for my Fog team, like that's a huge bonus to you. And then you can focus on other areas of coverage.
That's the Heatran logic right there too, right?
So Heatran, if you take Heatran, it's insane TDO for a fire type,
Yeah.
right? So you don't need any other fire types.
So Roserade is the only Pokemon here in these top 6 picks that don't really fit that. We have Kyogre, Groudon, Moltres, Mewtwo, and Giratina that are very tanky. But Roserade is just good enough and a dual attacker that we're going to see it get picked up here. And it's not that much of a reach. It's ranked 6th, and we see it picked up 5th.
I think Roserade, I've been noticing it's going in first rounds a lot. I don't think I would take Roserade first in the first round, like regardless of what pick I had, to be honest with you. Grass is definitely a useful typing.
Yeah.
Poison is good for Granbull, which is a raid boss that doesn't always make an appearance. So I don't think that it has the best dual typing for a first round pick. It's also very glassy, so if you take Roserade, you're going to want to back up its grass and poison typings with subsequent picks. That's true for other Pokemon, but I just don't think that the poison typing, its poison subtyping is not that useful.
But
in my
like you
opinion.
said, you wouldn't necessarily have to back up a Kyogre pick, which is one of the reasons that we do see it consistently taken at the 4th spot, and your other plug for Giratina Origin form there. The other thing with Roserade, yes, it's a poison type, and it's the best grass DPS in the game, but there's other really comparable grass type Pokemon that you could also just as easily pick up. So for that reason, I also don't really love Roserade. Like, you could just grab a Sceptile or a Venusaur or something. I used to love picking up Executor, and we typically see that go pretty high as well. That with a different kind of flex use. But yeah, Roserade is definitely a standout here, and interesting to see it get taken.
To me, it's a reach. I kind
Yeah.
of see what I'm the Black Metal is going for, because you can see that later on he fleshes out his team with more grass types.
Right.
But for a number 1 pick, I wouldn't take Roserade.
Yeah.
I just couldn't say that.
And even bigger reach, just according to the metrics here, both total reach and top 5 reach is the Giratina. So is Giratina just too new into the draft format that people haven't really figured out how good it is, you think?
Right, so this is the first season that Giratina Origin is draftable.
Right.
I think a lot of people probably think, oh, well, Fog is not very common for me,
Right.
so it may not be the best choice. But the fact is that Giratina Origin is almost as good
Yeah.
as Groudon and Garchomp into Raichu unboosted.
Yeah.
And boosted is not even a contest.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong Pokemon. And then you can see that Efintel didn't take any other Dark or Ghost types, because he doesn't have to.
Now, with your pick, we actually get our first steal of the draft. If you're not counting Groudon there, which I'm not. But yeah, we see you pick up Honchkrow, and I think Honchkrow, I'll give it to Giratina Origin. He might be up there, but I think Honchkrow's a solid spot at number 5, and the fact that it is a dark type against Alolan Raichu and then a flying type against Machamp, you're covering both of those 2 bosses, and the only other Pokemon that does that this well is Mewtwo Classic, a first pick. So I really like the Honchkrow pick here. How are you feeling about picking that one up?
Right. So at this point, like you said, I mean, I'm taking a mini Mewtwo in Honchkrow. I also considered Gengar and Alakazam as other picks, just because Gengar is obviously highest Ghost DPS, and Alakazam is, well, Azelf is not draftable, so Alakazam is the second highest Psychic type DPS available at the time. And I mean, like, you always have to expect the champ, right? And also Raichu. I just think that Honchkrow does champ worse than Alakazam, but it does Raichu just so much better than Alakazam. So to me, it's definitely preferable.
Right, with Alakazam not having a super effective fast move.
So if there is one drawback to Honchkrow, it's not very tanky into either Machamp or Raichu. It's weak to electric moves. It's neutral to fighting. It's weak to Rock Slide, which is something that Machamp comes with now. So if you take Honchkrow, you need to back it up with subsequent picks.
It's definitely not a tanky Pokemon to begin with, and then it does have this weird typing that kind of just lines up in a very weird way with Alolan Raichu, but then obviously against the fighting types, against any fighting type, the dark typing is going to mean that it's at least taking neutral damage on the stab movesets there. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, but it is the first big steal of the draft, so you're winning right now. If
winning on paper,
yes, if the draft just stopped right there, we'd call it as a win. But we'll see how that progresses. I really do like Honchkrow though. And based on the performances last season, Honchkrow drafters did really well. So we'll see how that works out for you this season here. Next, we do have the Gengar that you were talking about, and just a little bit of a steal here. But yeah, you kind of talked on Gengar. Obviously, it's super effective against itself. And then Alolan Raichu. That's the main things that we're looking for with Gengar, and then maybe it gets some use in like Claydol raids and things.
Claydol, maybe Alakazam.
Okay.
Gengar is higher DPS into Raichu than Groudon or Garchomp, unboosted,
Right.
while the other two are boosted. The thing is that it's glassy,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't last as long. It needs a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
But if the thing is, if you don't take it first round, it's not going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, vision, like how much do you value that DPS? And so then obviously Dancing Koala valued it enough to take it first. It's a respectable first pick for sure.
And I was looking for some reason in my head. Gengar wasn't drafted this highly last season, but that's just not correct. It was taken around 10th last season, had a rank of 10, and we see the same rank this season. So Gengar, pretty consistent top performer here as far as PokeDraft goes. It really separates the men from the boys here, in that you do have to really be willing to dodge with Gengar, whereas maybe with a Moltres or a Kyogre, you can get away with a little bit more. Alrighty, so let's move on. We see Rhyperior picked up next. Kind of a high Rhyperior, but not really, as far as the top five drafters are concerned. We see that right at ninth here, and that gets taken at ninth by Abdu. So, yeah, Rhyperior, good stuff. It's a ground type, and then it's not the next best ground type after Groudon, but it's the ground type with the next best options on it, in that it's also half rock type.
Right. So Rhyperior is obviously more obtainable for most people
That's true.
than Garchomp is at this point.
Sure.
It is a dual type, with it's actually useful. I don't think that Garchomp's Dragon.
Right, right.
I don't know that we'll ever see a Dragon T3.
Yeah.
But so he has a good matchup into Raichu, potentially Jolteon if that rears its ugly head.
So next up we have the wheel, and we see Alakazam and Espeon both get taken up here. Now, Espeon is a little bit of a reach. Alakazam winds up being at about this level of a pick, specifically because, like you said, it does kind of cover those two Pokemon that we're going to see regularly, the Machamp and the Alolan Raichu. But this is just with the wheel pick. Alcemesta wanting to lock in his Psychic team.
Yeah, I thought this was actually a really good move on his part. When your last pick or first pick, you do get to that double pick of the snake draft. So I think the best way to make use of that is to solidify.
Yeah, draft a full team.
So with his first two picks, he's basically guaranteed himself best Machamp time here. He also has two very strong options into Gengar too.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes an appearance. And then with Alakazam Shadow Ball, he has an option into Raichu.
Yeah.
So I think those first two picks, I mean, I know Espeon is a bit of a reach there, but it would not come back to him.
Right.
Like, there's no way.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen this before as a wheel, an Alakazam plus Espeon pick. But yeah, like you said, I mean, if this solidifies him as with the top Machamp times, it's going to be hard to fault a pick like this. So yeah, pretty cool move here. All right, let's move along here. We see Elemental Mewtwo get picked up next, and this is a little bit of a steal here that this is still on the board. So we see Abdu pick it up. Yeah, it's just a good generalist, covers a lot of bases. Anything crazy to add about Elemental Mewtwo here?
I kind of don't like Elemental Mewtwo because it doesn't excel at anything.
Yeah.
There are better electric types, there are better fire types. So not to skip too far ahead, but he took Flareon, so now he has Flamethrower Mewtwo to sort of like come in as like the finisher
Yeah.
if he needs fire. So that's, I think, probably its best use is just to finish raids that you need
Right.
like a little extra for.
Yeah, it's weird because it's never going to be really strong in your teams. It's almost, I mean, the comparison is pretty straightforward, but it's kind of like a amped up version of Mew, which can always kind of fill a role in the party, but is never really going to be like something super fantastic that you're like, oh, I'm so glad I have this on my team.
Yeah, I mean, for it to stand out, it would have like you'd have to find something that and ice, fire, or electric is super effective against. So I mean, I don't know. You're talking like a Nidoking, a Nidoqueen, something like that. Those have only
Right.
appeared in T4s, so I don't really think we'd see a T3 version of those. I mean, yeah, no. Elemental Mewtwo, I think it struggles to find a place
Yeah.
among like the upper echelon, but it always goes very early because it is still Mewtwo.
Yeah, and you can't really
Some
fault Abdu
utility.
for
So
taking it here. Like I said, he is getting a steal, but it's just nothing super exciting. So then we see Rayquaza picked up, and we've talked about dragons a little bit before. You're really just using this as a flying type, and then it can come in with some neutral DPS in the same way that you might put a Mewtwo at the end of your party. Sometimes we do see players have to just end their run with a Palkia or a Rayquaza just as dragon neutral DPS. But you're able to get Blaziken here, and I have to feel like you're pretty happy about that. Is that a good one that makes it back to you?
okay, Blaziken is a pick that would most definitely not make it back to me.
Yeah,
I really was feeling like because of Osamesta's double psychic pick,
yeah.
Dancing Koala probably reacting to that by taking him a champ counter while he still could. I thought about going with Gardevoir. I've never taken Gardevoir in any draft. It's on the table. It would be a good pairing for Honchkrow from a champ, and then also it has sort of like a dual purpose with Shadow Ball. So Confusion Shadow Ball into
True,
Gengar.
true. Yeah,
Also be a good fog pairing for Honchkrow. I decided not to take it because I think fire is something that's perennially important. I'm trying to think of a draft where fire didn't have use, and
yeah.
I just can't. So I decide that I'm going to build the best fire team that I can, and actually I'm going for the Moltres user here. So I go with Blaziken, and then subsequently I'm looking to take another fire type to back it up later on.
Okay.
But I guess let's not jump ahead.
Yeah. Was that part of your plan going into the draft though? I mean, you can only plan so much not knowing what your first pick is. But one thing that we didn't really talk about yet, and I didn't bring it up because I had no idea what to expect. But did you have any idea what you were kind of drafting around or what kind of bosses that you were predicting before this draft started?
So my predictions for this were, well, first and foremost, obviously Machamp and Raichu. So
Right,
those are things
right.
you
Those
always want
aside,
to
those
cover.
aside. Yeah.
Those aside, I'm thinking we might get Regigigas
Right?
uh, next after Azelf. Maybe they rotate. I'm pretty sure that it was stated that they wouldn't rotate, but
Yeah.
if we are going to have more
Right.
months of psychic bosses, it's something that I have in the back of my mind. I'm thinking maybe we get Regigigas,
That's like
maybe
the only
a
thing that we can predict, though, is something that Niantic specifically said they wouldn't do.
right?
So, yeah, as far as knowing what kind of bosses are going to be up, I feel like that makes this season much different than last one, where we definitely had a pretty good idea of Dialga, so we're going to be seeing fighting and ground type bosses as just a way to kickstart the draft there.
Right. So this one it really does feel blind
Yeah,
now. Like we have no idea what's coming after Azelf.
right.
I mean, repeats were something that it obviously occurred to me, but like which ones? Like no one knows.
Yeah,
Of course, now we know that it's Cresselia
Yep.
Kyogre and Groudon. Cresselia I didn't necessarily see coming, but I guess, shiny form was released. It's something that Niantic thinks might get people to start raiding more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But either way, you wanted a fire team here, and kind of what I was getting at was if your pick was a little bit earlier, are you still picking Blaziken? I assume maybe Alakazam and Espeon, and then you also mentioned Gengar if either of those things were on the table. But it seemed like you really didn't have an interest in Mewtwo or Rayquaza, right?
No, I wouldn't take Mewtwo Elemental probably.
Yeah,
I won't say that I would never take it, right?
right. But in
But
this
likely
spot,
I won't take it. Ray, I don't think I would take. I don't think Ray's the second pick.
yeah,
I don't think he thinks it's the second pick either. I think he took it
yeah.
because at this point, Mewtwo's gone, Moltres is gone, Honchkrow is gone, Alakazam and Espeon are gone. So he's probably thinking, hey, if I don't start getting my Machamp team together,
Yeah,
it might be too late later on.
for sure. So yeah, Blaziken, I think that's a pretty solid pickup here. Then we do see the Gardevoir that you talked about, and even though this has a one of the highest reaches that we've seen so far, just like Espeon, there is a weird thing with PokeDraft where sometimes one person takes a fire Pokemon and then everybody starts taking fire Pokemon. And Asumesta really kind of got that ball rolling with the Machamp counters here by taking that Alakazam and Espeon, really put the pressure on Dancing Koala and a Findle to pick up Rayquaza and Gardevoir. So I feel like that's part of what we're seeing here, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely in response to that, and I can't fault them for that
Yeah.
because once Gardevoir is gone, now I mean there's kind of like a steep drop off in
Yeah.
terms of quality.
There's Togekiss, there's a low or not a Alolan, normal Executor, but these are really like tankier options rather than options that are also bringing the same DPS quality.
Right. So with that pick, he's definitely also trying to start building his Machamp team. I don't think Gardevoir would still be around.
Yeah.
Um, if not here, but like I mean, you can see that other people were thinking in third round, like I want to get Machamp counter.
Yeah.
So at least one other person was. So Gardevoir, I don't think would have stuck around.
So let's fill out these next few picks here. Rampardos, we all know that guy's really high, and we've said a little bit about rock, but rock types wind up being pretty good. I've seen your Scyther Rampardos video. But yeah, anything crazy about these next picks? I guess we could talk about Heat Ram. We brought that one up earlier.
I'll touch briefly on Rampardos. I took it
Sure.
second
Yeah.
last season. I never used it.
Yeah.
Rampardos is, I mean, it's very high DPS. I don't really like rock types that much. I
Mhm.
don't love rock types for draft just because I think that there's a lot of other things that do what they do better. The exception to that is Scyther, which is not something that we always
Yeah.
see. So you're basically saying I want to dedicate my second pick to this one niche boss.
Yeah.
Um,
It does
he does have
help
to get
against a
it.
pincer or something.
It's a pincer, but like I mean, there's higher, there's fire types which I think you can get more synergy
That's
amongst
true.
multiple picks
That's true.
with. So like Rampardos is it's way up there on the DPS charts, right? But then
Yeah.
there's a drop off. Are you going to get Rampardos and Tyranitar on the same team? Do you want to use your pick on Tyranitar? I mean, I don't know. These are questions you have to think about because if you're going to go into if you're going to go with a partly cloudy team into like Ice or Bug, then you're going to need more partly cloudy counters.
Mhm.
I think that Rampardos is, it's a sort of an outlier in rock types.
Yeah.
It's so high. Whereas I think that there's a denser cluster of high DPS fire types to like draw from that can also cover those bases. So that's just my thought into that.
One funny thing that I noticed about Rampardos too, we're talking about it's another Pokemon that you need more to really fill out that partly cloudy or just rock DPS team. And this is from the player that also picked up Roserade. So I'm the Black Metal is not looking great here. Just as far as picking up two kind of glassy high DPS options. Rampardos does go at about this point in the draft, though we do see that the top 5 drafts do favor it a little bit less.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a gamble pick.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're not going to go fire, which I am the black metal didn't take any fire types,
Yeah.
unless you want to count flamethrower Togekiss or flamethrower Rampardos for that matter. I don't know. Let's not go there.
I actually didn't even know that was Rampardos' third charge move.
Yeah, no. It can, or maybe Hidden Power Fire Porygon-Z. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to get far ahead. But it's a difficult pick to back up. Also, he doesn't have a Machamp counter within his first 2 picks, even though we know that's going to be Rayquaza. He also doesn't have a Raichu counter within his first 2 picks. So I think his round 1, round 2 are very interesting, but I don't think optimal. His round 3 pick, I think, definitely starts bringing him back more towards what you'd expect in terms of coverage. So,
but Heatran, we see, is now the biggest reach on the board. But the top draft league, both last season and this season, does seem to like Heatran for some of those things that we talked about before. But mainly, what I was talking about with Cuddy last season is that Heatran does a large percentage of the damage that you would need to do as a fire-type Pokemon. And sometimes you don't need any additional help or just a little additional help on your fire team by picking up Heatran. So really the TDO is what's separating this between Entei or Charizard that definitely have a higher DPS.
Yeah, I think Heatran is a fire conservation pick. I mean, Entei, it's very comparable in DPS to Entei because its fire spin is hitting higher breakpoint, even though it has fire blast.
Oh, interesting.
It is an Entei into ice or bug because it has those double resistances. I think it's a good second pick. Is it a good second pick for Eileen? I don't know with the number of Machamp counters that have already gone now. Like now she's relegating herself to a lower quality Machamp score.
Yep.
It may be worth it if she can put up some really good times on bosses that other people will struggle with. I don't know. But I think Heatran is a solid second pick. I mean, it really depends on what your first pick is, and what the availability is of counters to the most common raid bosses.
If we do see some really like we said, we have no idea what this season's bosses are really going to be. So if we see some offbeat bosses, Eileen's got a good start into handling those teams with the Kyogre and the Heatran. They can pretty much handle bosses all by themselves. Then we do see the Executor picked up. I think I've brought that up a few times already. Definitely a lower tier Machamp counter, but it does give you some flexibility. And like you've said, the Machamp counters, you got to start taking them because that's what the table's doing. So read the table, take the Machamp counters. We see the Executor get taken up. Then we see Breloom. Both of these are kind of just filling in Pokemon that should have potentially not should have been taken by now, but they're definitely high picks. Breloom is I think fair to get taken here. And then on the wheel we have Metagross and Entei. So how do you feel about this wheel pick from Yailong here?
I think so. Metagross obviously backs up Mewtwo. That's all he needs for the Machamp raid now. So his Machamp team is done. Metagross is very strong. Steel DPS, even when it's unboosted. I don't like Metagross just because, it's very difficult to get snow. In fact, we're not going to get snow, right? It's the summer now.
Yeah.
So we're not having any more winter snowstorms or anything like that. At least where I live. Yilong lives in New York, I think, so probably not for him either.
Mm-hmm.
But Metagross is still it's the best counter into Granbull. It's even unboosted. It's still better than a lot of boosted poison types.
Right.
It's
super strong if we see again, one of those more like offbeat picks. Getting to like fill out your Machamp team, which is one of the most important things, and then kind of also giving you that same kind of Heatran, Kyogre, niche solo coverage. Yeah, definitely makes Metagross a good pick here.
Exactly. And then so he takes Entei, which is basically it could be the only fire type that he needs because Entei is also very bulky.
Yep.
If he's gonna dodge, it could 1v1 a lot of things that are weak to fire. So at this point, I'm a little uncomfortable honestly because he has like a better version of my team.
Yep. I was just
Almost like
thinking
he's got a
that. Yep.
complete Machamp team.
Yep.
He has some interesting flexibility with Metagross. And then he has basically a fire team already as well. So I'm just like, oh my god, I'm really far behind now because
Yeah.
in order to sort of like compensate for like not having something as strong as Mewtwo, I'm gonna need like a lot of picks, right? To like
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, you have the flexible coverage with Blaziken if fighting matters, which it does matter from time to time. We do see fighting bosses show up more as tier 4 counters, but they do show up as some tier 3 counters as well. But yeah, just like directly comparing your drafts, he got Mewtwo, you got Honchkrow. He got Entei, you got Blaziken. And then he has Metagross there as well. So yeah, an interesting kind of parallel between your two drafts there. Is there
Sure.
anything? Is there anything that's still on the board here that you're looking to pick up? Because one of the other things that I noticed, there is a sheet, Steven analysis in the Excel doc that shows just how quickly everyone made their picks. So I'm assuming that you pretty much had a lot of your picks lined up, or you know what you wanted to come to you. And what are you hoping makes it to you at this point in the draft, or have you not thought
Uh,
about that yet?
so I mean, there's a lot of time to think
Yeah,
in between picks,
yeah,
especially when you're seventh. There's if everybody else is taking like a few minutes, I mean, it really adds up.
mm-hmm.
And in many cases, there were hours,
Yeah.
in between picks, just because people have different schedules, of course. I thought about taking Garchomp if it was still on the table when it got back to me.
Okay.
Like honestly, I was looking at it, I was like, I could take one thing to do
Mm-hmm.
Raichu in guaranteed easy to find clear weather and then just be done with it and then just focus on other things if it's still around. I would just trade for a Garchomp as long as it had like at least an 11 attack.
Yeah.
The Gibble had at least 11 attack. I would just Rare Candy dump it and max out. I don't care. Just like
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes to win. So that was one thing I was keeping my eye out on. Other people, were starting to talk about Garchomp because like I think that there was concern that it would get back to me.
Mm.
Was even thinking about taking Garchomp, even though he already has Groudon. He doesn't need it, just so that I wouldn't have it. So,
Interesting. Interesting.
I definitely don't think that Garchomp was ever going to make it back to me, but if it had, there's a good chance I would have taken it.
A little hate drafting going on there. So we do see the Garchomp get picked up before it's your turn here. We also see Latios again, another Machamp counter. And then we have Mamoswine, which is similar to Garchomp, similar ground type DPS, and then ice type. So some additional, maybe some better coverage there. Obviously, a lot less tanky. Tyranitar, I think, is the biggest pick of those last four there. Typically, we see Tyranitar go a lot higher in one of the first two rounds, and in most of the other pods, that's how it plays out. With the Steven division taking it a little late here. You kind of brought up Tyranitar. I don't know. I like it. Good Alolan Raichu coverage, and then a Rock type.
Alolan Raichu coverage as a rock type, it's I don't know, it's not better than some other options into like ice and fire. The thing is with Tyranitar, there's like a Tyranitar curse, I think. Like Like I swear it's a real thing. I don't think I've seen anybody win with Tyranitar on their team. Not to say that like you're
Yeah.
guaranteed to lose if you take
I,
it.
I have in a local league, but that's a different story. Maybe maybe that's why I have so much respect for Tyranitar too. That I saw Ivy Pips, the creator of PokeNav, do really well with Tyranitar on his team. Obviously, that was before Rampardos was even in the picture, but Tyranitar does just bring so much bulk that I think it's a good pick here, and
Oh yeah, in the third slot, yeah, it's a good pick.
yeah, and I'm thinking like the only pick that I might want to like switch it out with or something is maybe like the Breloom if you were going to take the Tyranitar a little bit higher and the Breloom, but they both wind up getting picked up by Legion Commander anyways, so it's kind of a moot point there. But yeah, I like Tyranitar, and I think he winds up being pretty good. But who knows? He might be cursed. There might be a curse on him. So
See, maybe Legion can pull it out this time.
yeah, we'll see. So then, right before your pick, Garchomp goes 2 slots before you. Then Venusaur, and then you pick up Charizard. So another fire type Pokemon. Is this good for you? Is this kind of what you were thinking? I mean, I think it was pretty clear the Entei wasn't going to make it back to you. But are you happy to see the Charizard here?
I'm very happy with Charizard. I think that this also upset a few other people because I've
Really?
now solidified. I don't think that Moltres by itself will beat Blaziken and Charizard, just because
Right.
now I have more flexibility in terms of like how many charge moves I can tank,
Yeah.
the energy gains that I can sort of play around with having two really strong Blast Burn Pokemon.
Yeah. Just
Oh,
fire Moltres. Obviously, Sky Attack Moltres is still going to make Moltres a really good pick, but you can now rival for the top fire DPS in your pod.
right. So then after this, Sceptile goes. I don't know if I would take Sceptile there if I was dancing Koala.
Yeah, it's
Um,
another Pokemon that like you're filling in. It should have been taken already, but it's not crazy flexible or I mean it's just starting to pick up some grass types for Koala, right?
I would. It's a good grass Pokemon. Um, would I go for it at this point? It's debatable. I mean, I would probably, if I were him, want to like finish my Machamp team. Like honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
but okay.
Don't sleep on that forever.
Like, so at this point for him, he's got picks with like really no synergy unless we want to count Psychic Gengar as a suitable Machamp counter, which I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna want to try and finish, start plugging in the holes
Mm-hmm.
and finishing out those teams that he started. Moving on to Abdo, if I may move on.
Yeah, yeah.
Takes Flareon, probably because now like a lot of fire types are gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming Blaziken and Charizard are gone, Moltres is gone, Heatran's gone, Entei's gone. He's like, oh wow, okay, so if I'm on a fire team, like I'm probably gonna take Flareon. I knew McShiny wanted Flareon to come back to him, so he was sad about this.
Yeah.
I one of the reasons why I decided to take fire so early is because there's a lot of Moroccan drafters in this division, and they have
Interesting.
very strong clear weather preference. So I knew that if I
Yeah.
didn't start building a clear weather team early, it would be very hard to later. Which definitely proves to be true because like a lot of really good fire types are already gone now, and it was much more difficult for them to sort of like finish those teams later, and some didn't even really get any fire or grass. So
And I do think that I do think that we see that happen with fire more than almost any other type. It feels like to me, once the fire type Pokemon start going, then you really do see them get picked up. That might not be as true once we start to see now we have Heatran and Blaziken. We're getting some more good fire type options. But still, we kind of see a similar thing play out this draft, and we've seen that happen in previous drafts too.
yeah, for sure.
So the wheel pick here is a pretty silly one. Similar thing. I don't know if this is this one seems a little bit silly to me though. The double golem pickup. Any thoughts on this?
This is insane to me. Yeah, it's completely insane. So he takes double rock because he thinks we might have fire type
Okay.
coming up. He
Okay.
he lives in Morocco. They don't have rain this time of year.
Yeah.
So if he's going to do anti-fire, it's gonna have to be rock or
Right.
ground.
Right. Rock
So,
ground.
ground are gone. The best rock actually are gone too now with Rampardos and Tyranitar. Rhyperior went first. So it makes a little bit of sense to me. Like I want to say it kind of makes sense, but it really doesn't. Uh, for Scyther, you just need Golem Alola
Yeah.
into double flying moveset. It's got the double resistance. It's very, very easy 1v1. I would to conserve my picks and not double up on Golem.
You don't.
So
I mean, it's you're playing from a completely different position when you are in the wheel because if he doesn't pick up the Alolan Golem here, there's a chance it doesn't come back. There's 18 more picks till he gets to pick again. But still, this is probably the biggest reach. I have to take a look here. No, it's not. Okay, but it's the most relevant reach. Maybe we'll get to one more. Regardless, there's a chance this comes back to him, right?
I think yeah, definitely. I think you would have. I don't think people value Golem that
Yeah,
highly.
yeah.
That it would be too far of a stretch of the imagination to think that it won't come back to him. I don't think people like plan specifically for Scyther. I
Yeah.
mean, it comes as a psychic counter to psychic legendary. So does Pinsir. I mean, it's just one boss. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think to dedicate two picks to one boss,
Yeah.
which and like I can't remember when Scyther was a raid boss in PokeDraft. I really can't remember when it was selected, what
So,
season it was.
I one time did take a Regirock as a last pick just in case we got Scyther, and we wound up getting Pinsir that season. So that was pretty disappointing for me.
What was your last pick though? You know, so
Yes,
it was just adding a little extra flexibility,
I still think it
some
was a
more
good pick.
utility,
It
things
was a
like that.
coin flip that I could have gotten Scyther there. So let's move on here from the golem talks. We see Gallade. This one is really not a pick that has been on my radar, and then Yanmega kind of released alongside it there. Some Sinnoh Pokemon here. Not I'll give a plug for one of my Game Press articles here. These two are not super high on the Sinnoh tier list, but how are they ranking, do you think, as far as PokeDraft goes?
Gallade is obviously his attempt to grab a Machamp counter. He
Yeah,
wants to
it's a
wants
loose
to
one though.
it's like he really wants to make sure that he's going to be able to put up like a somewhat decent Machamp time with Gallade. You don't pick it for its fighting type
Yeah,
coverage, but I mean that does exist, I suppose. Yanmega is sort of like a dual purpose. It's a flying type to pair with Rayquaza for Machamp.
that's true. Okay.
It's a bug type. If you don't think you'll get Fog, you don't have the I don't know, the drive to wake up early in the morning and
Yeah.
look for it, then you might want to do Raichu in rain.
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of coming around to Yanmega. Yanmega's the best bug type for PokeDraft now, I'm thinking, right? Because,
Mega, probably because of its typing. The
yeah,
one thing to
yeah.
note about it is that it's weak to electric.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and Raichu's also boosted in rain. So
You really
it
got to
needs
get the
help.
right move set. Yeah, I think we talked about that
You
last
need the right
season,
moveset
too.
and it needs help.
Yeah. Um, okay,
I would say there's a synergy problem though for him because you want Psychic then for a rain boosted Yanmega. You want a Psychic Raichu, but
right.
he's got Gengar, which is weak to Psychic.
Oh.
So it was like, and it's not exactly a very bulky Pokemon.
Yeah, he's going to have some interesting decision trees then when the Alolan Raichu comes up in draft. That's pretty interesting. But then we get to another one of your picks here, and you grab Lugia. So this is going to solidify your ability to handle a Machamp. This is actually right when we see Lugia go here on average, just about 34th pick. So, yeah, it's like mathematically the correct pick, and then just kind of works out for the team that you've drafted, too. There is still like a Togekiss on the board as well, but Lugia is obviously going to be better than that for the most part. So, yeah, decent. I feel like you had some options here, too. How you feeling about the Lugia pick?
I had a number of options.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that like I can. So my fire team's done.
Yep.
I have an anti-fighting team started in Honchkrow, and I
Mm-hmm.
have an anti-ghost psychic team started in Honchkrow. So which one do I want to finish? Given the alarming rate of Machamp counters disappearing,
Yeah.
I confirm this with other people. I mean, I highly suspect Lugia doesn't make it back to me.
Yeah.
And there are other Machamp counters left. I mean, there's like some high DPS ones in the two Deoxys forms, normal and attack. But I'm thinking save picks here.
Yeah.
Like, if I take a Deoxys normal, I still need to get something else. Because, Deoxys normal is not very bulky.
And
I don't really want to...
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, no.
No.
I don't want to use a lot of picks to do Machamp.
Yeah.
There's other teams I really want to start building. Lugia really saves me all those picks. Like Honchkrow Lugia, that's it, done. I don't need anything else from Champ. That's like that's solidified.
Yeah.
I thought about taking Weevil. Weevil was still on the board, and I was like, if I take Honchkrow and Weevil, that's going to be a killer Fog team into Raichu. And but I was like, I can get some Dark types later. Like I can definitely get some Dark types later. Lugia will not be here.
Yeah.
For sure, it'll be gone.
We're like you said, that's just kind of reading the table. Like the Machamp picks really are almost up, and I mean, I don't want to spoil like your last picks here, but we've seen some pretty decent fog boosted Pokemon. I'll just say go pretty late, 8th, 9th, 10th rounds. There's just a lot of mid-tier stuff that all winds up being available at around that time.
All right, so I felt like Weevil was probably not the best use.
Yeah.
It would have given me the best, but you know what? I think I'm still gonna probably win Raichu anyway.
So
I don't need it.
I wouldn't have hated to see the Weavile pick from you, but then like you said, somebody's gonna pick up the Lugia, and the Togekiss probably also isn't going to make it back to you. And the other thing that, like I was just saying, is mathematically, you look at the numbers we got on this chart here set up, Lugia is, by the numbers, the right pick. What isn't by the numbers the right pick is this Magmortar here, and this is probably the biggest reach, in my opinion, is this Magmortar pickup. Maybe not as much by I guess actually looking at just the top 5 quotient, the Golem Alolan is a little bit bigger, but the Magmortar again, but like we've been saying, all the fire types are going. So this pick is a little bit more defendable, I think, but how do you feel about this pick?
It's the highest DPS fire type still left. Yeah. I think it's a little too early for Magmortar because it's a little bit lackluster. I don't know. I have no idea if he's thinking, hey, maybe I'll use a psychic Magmortar to back up Gardevoir. I hope not, but maybe that's something that occurred to him. It does have that now.
There's Typhlosion still on the board.
The Typhlosion is still on the board here too. I think between Magmortar and Typhlosion, I would take Typhlosion.
Yeah, I think so
just
too.
Because that Blackburn is just better energy management than Fire Blast. Even though Magmortar does have the much superior fast move, they're pretty comparable. I would take Typhlosion. I might even take Houndoom over Magmortar just because it's got better dual typing.
Yeah, that's true. So that's some of the reason that we don't typically see Magmortar picked up here. feel like a lot of these next few picks we've talked about here, Weavile is actually the biggest steal at this point, alongside Tyranitar kind of there. And yeah, I think Weavile would have been a pretty good pick for you, but who knows how that would have, butterfly effect. And I think it winds up working out for you. So let's jump ahead a little bit more.
Yeah.
Ho-Oh, same thing. We always see Ho-Oh about 3 picks after Lugia. Just mathematically, that winds up always happening. Ho-Oh is an interesting one. I still have not. Do you have a Ho-Oh powered up? Have you ever used a Ho-Oh in PokeDraft?
I have 2 Ho-Oh powered up, and I took it. I think I took it 3rd in V4.
Okay.
The season that I won.
Okay.
Another season that I won.
Okay.
Ho-Oh is. I can't say terrible things about it because I won with the Ho-Oh on my team.
I was laughing there a little bit because do you have a Ho-Oh powered up is kind of a trick question. It really does. Do you have multiple Ho-Oh powered up, which is part of the reason I haven't personally felt the need to pull the trigger, but I do have a lucky, I think I've got a lucky hidden power fire, which might not even be the best. You might want grass and flying, right?
Yeah, I think you want all 3.
Yeah.
Hey, it's an investment. So Ho-Oh, I mean, I confirm this later. If I didn't take Lugia, then I'm the Black Metal would have taken Lugia if it was still available. Yeah. He told me. Eileen would have taken Ho-Oh if it was still available.
I think all that you would see, because you were between Lugia and Weavile, right? So if you take Weavile, then Black Metal takes Lugia, and the rest of the draft plays out pretty similar for the next few picks at least.
But then I would be in trouble in terms of building my Machamp team because like Deoxys Normal goes before it gets back to me. Togekiss goes before it gets back to me. There'd be a lot of issues.
And we do see the Togekiss taken off the board before your next pick. And the Togekiss is actually then becomes the biggest steal, believe it or not. And Togekiss I have seen that's really impressed me. As far as PokeDraft goes, it is kind of funny talking about all of these things that all of these people that need Machamp counters, and the Togekiss winds up going so late. But we do see that picked up here by I Am the Black Metal. Any thoughts about any of these other picks that happen after that?
So Feraligatr was something I wanted.
Okay.
That goes right before me.
Yeah.
I was really thinking about getting something for Rock Ground at this point.
Okay.
Gyarados went.
Right.
Gyarados. Elon took a which is a strong water type. You can even 1v1 certain things. So it's definitely a good pick there. He also took Raikou, so he's got a nice little rainy team going on. Feraligatr kind of messed me up. I'm not gonna lie with you. Feraligatr did a lot of work for me last season. Not having it this time, I'm looking at it and it's like the best water DPS now left is, and it's Sharpedo, both of which are kind of glassy. And I'm like, I need to look ahead here.
Yeah.
What if I don't need a water type? First round. What if I don't need a water type?
And I gotta say,
then.
Right. The fact that you wind up getting the Swampert, you might wind up having a better pick here. The fact that we don't really know when Mudkip Community Day is going to be is a little bit sketchy. We could see another weird, like July could very well be Eevee again or something weird like that. But the fact that you do kind of have this backup option that might surpass Feraligatr, it's a little bit of a risky pick here. But yeah, I guess, were you happy to land on this? Or I guess we won't really know until the season ends, right? How this one does for you.
I wasn't extremely happy to land on this.
Yes.
To be honest, it's a gamble. I knew it was a gamble when I did it. I'm thinking, okay, if I don't need a water type round one, I didn't once last season. I mean, like I said, when I'm talking about Kyogre as the first pick, water really, it's not something that's guaranteed to be helpful, but it can be. Swampert, I'm thinking I do want no, and it might not stick around just because it's also a ground type. It's not a great ground type, but there's a clear preference from Abdo and Osamesta at the end of the board. They might want to take, Osamesta might want to take Swampert as like a secondary ground type to Golem for doing Raichu and potentially Jolteon. I don't know. So there's no guarantee it'll stay. I'm probably not the only person who must be thinking that it's going to get a CD next month potentially. So I decided I need to capitalize on this now. It may not end up being the best pick. We do have Adventure Week announced.
Yep.
I don't know how to impact draft. I hope. I mean, there's a number of
just keep on pushing draft back so that Swampert's more likely to be relevant.
I mean, yeah, there's a number of options.
Yeah.
Where I wouldn't need water to necessarily handle them, like Aerodactyl. You can go with electric. With Lunatone and Solrock, I can go with dark. So yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work out, but yeah, I think Swampert for me, if I had to do this all over again, coming up, I probably would still do Swampert.
Okay. Now, you didn't really have the choice of Feraligatr versus Swampert, but like you were kind of saying, you don't know when in the season you'll get to use this Pokemon. In Season 4, I actually had the choice between Feraligatr and Blastoise before Feraligatr's Community Day, and I went with Blastoise. I went with the safe pick, and then because of holidays and other things, the season wound up getting pushed back so far that the first time I needed a water-type Pokemon, we had Feraligatr Community Day. So it could work out for you. A similar thing could happen.
I mean, that's the hope.
Yeah.
A certain in draft, if anything is certain.
So we see a water type. I guess, you know what, let's skip ahead to the wheel pick here. We see Leafeon and Houndoom. Leafeon is just one of a number of different grass types that are all similarly ranked. And then the Houndoom we talked about. And then we see another similar pick here from Alcemesta with Arcanine plus Infernape. So he's got a strategy. He's going to pick up a team when it comes his time to draft, and he hasn't deviated from that yet.
No. So the double fire pick, I mean, at this point, there really isn't a lot of good fires left.
Yeah.
I would probably not take Infernape over Salamence, though, just as a side note.
Okay.
I would probably not take Infernape over Salamence. I think that was probably a mistake on his point.
Salamence,
on his
actually,
part, but okay.
I did notice Salamence went really late in your pod. And you wind up not picking it up either, but for different reasons, as your fire team is already kind of good. You could have taken it as a bite user, which I think is part of the reason that Salamence is so good. It has 3 different fast moves, so it winds up being a lot closer to a dual-type Pokemon than a Dragon-type Pokemon. It kind of winds up being a dual, like, dark fire type than anything else, right?
It's got some interesting coverage options. I don't think Salamence excels at anything. I mean, like I said before, there's still no Dragon T3. In that case, I'm not really interested in Salamence until much later. It did go pretty late. I think round 6 is a reasonable time for it to go if you still need more fire DPS. But yeah, I have to say, I think Osamesta made a mistake going Infernape over Salamence. The thing is, Infernape is a little bit better DPS. It is, but it's also very glassy. Arcanine is sort of like mid-tier bulk.
Yeah, neither of these are really great Pokemon. They get a little bit better together, but now he doesn't have another pick for 18 more picks, so not feeling super great about the current roster there. I did feel it. Salamence, it's definitely the biggest steal when it gets picked up. I think that the other pods kind of value it a little bit higher as opposed to the top five, but even the top five we see an average rank of 39, average draft pick 34 overall when we're seeing it picked up 58th here. So you might agree with that placement, but typically it's at least a little bit higher, I think.
Yeah, I think Salamence should go lower. It's not. It doesn't excel at
Yeah.
anything. To me, it's probably like a role support.
And I don't think it is necessarily as good as like a 34th pick, but I could definitely see it getting picked up around the 50 spot, like you said, over in Fernape here.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think. I mean, Infernape mathematically, it's DPS. It's got stab right
Yeah.
on its fire. Its DPS is higher than Salamance's by a little bit, but it's very glassy. Arcanine Infernape is not like.
Yeah.
I would be like concerned if I was like, do I actually have enough TDO here to just be able to do it with just these two fire types?
Interesting.
You have Salamence. It has a double resistance to grass,
Mm-hmm.
so it could be very helpful for you for completing a raid. And also, Infernape is going to need to dodge more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, PS advantage, but now it's losing out on energy gains that it could get if it was tankier and could actually tank charge moves where Salamence might have that benefit. So, I don't know. That's just my just like my 2 cents there
Yeah.
on sort of the Infernape choice.
Yeah. We see you pick up Electivire here, and this seems like it's going to be a pretty similar strategy to what you did last season, though happening a little bit later in the draft because of not having the Moltres, I think, to carry you as far. But we see you pick up an Electivire to try to get an electric team, whereas most players are focusing on a grass team. Um, was that one of your thoughts? Is that something that you were thinking about? To remind people, I guess you didn't wind up using your electric team last season, so maybe that also meant that it's fine that it winds up getting drafted later.
I think, electric. It's not something that you use every draft, right? So I didn't use it last season.
Right.
I do like to leave it later. One reason that I like to leave it later is because people really seem to gravitate towards clear weather.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably because just from like a technical standpoint, it's just easier to raid in like nice weather
For
than it
sure.
is in the rain
For
if you don't
sure.
have a
Yeah.
car.
We do see a lot of players that play on foot, that participate in PokeDraft, and especially in the city. Um, but I think if people really wanted to, they could go out in the rain. They could hang out under an awning or something. I think it's more about the numbers, that there's just so many more grass type Pokemon that you can much more consistently get a clear boosted grass team. Um, and like you said, even if you don't wind up using this electric team, because electric does have slightly worse coverage than grass, it is still good that you try to get it at some point.
As a water counter, which I mean, there's a fair number of water bosses, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that are T3s. To me, it's really good value because Electivire it's insanely high DPS. It's up there with past Roserade
Right,
even,
right.
and even past Raikou. The thing is that people don't value electric as much. So
Right.
I instead of using burning, I don't know, not to name names, burning my first pick on Roserade,
Mm-hmm.
to get top tier grass, why not just get even better DPS
Mm-hmm.
for water types later on in the sixth pick? I think I probably would always go electric later because
Yeah.
there's just so many really strong options that no one considers or wants to take. I mean, I certainly wouldn't take Leafeon over Electivire as a water counter. I
That.
wouldn't take what else went like Tangrowth
Yeah.
or
Shiftry. I think that's a
Venusaur.
little
I mean,
different.
like
Yeah.
Electivire is better than all of them.
Yeah. Now not everybody can do this. If everybody tries to do this same thing, then obviously you cannibalize each other. And that, I think, is part of the reason that people are so used to taking grass. But I do think, to your point, just wanting to find clear boosted teams, that being so much easier, I think that that probably does play a part of it too. Because Electivire is such a good Pokemon to go so late here. It might not be the best in PokeDraft, but it is still a great Pokemon.
For sure. I was very happy to be able to get Electivire. This was something I was kind of planning on getting Electrics at some point.
Yep.
Raikou went earlier. I think Raikou is a little bit more valuable because
Shadow Ball now, too.
one, it's bulkier, two, Shadow Ball.
Yep.
Getting Electivire in this pick is very solid. And of course, Crawdaunt was picked this rotation. Sharpedo is also in the rotation. It wasn't picked. Electric is actually going to make an appearance
For sure.
this season, like last for me, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to win Crawdaunt.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, we will look forward to
I feel
your...
confident saying that, yeah.
We'll look forward to your Electivire runs then. Yeah, then we see Dragonite. It's got Hurricane. Nothing really too much to say here on Dragonite, but we see Victory Bell and Palkia as the wheel, and Palkia has one of the biggest WTF quotients, it looks like here, as we see that for the top 5, this is only a little bit of a steal, but a much higher steal number that some of the other divisions are definitely valuing this highly. I don't think there's too much to say on these picks. Victory Bell's pretty good. It's a Roserade light. And then Palkia is really just... I think I even brought it up before. It sometimes closes out your parties and is sometimes using Hydro Pump. I guess, what are you looking for after your Electivire pick as far as what's going to come around to you? Do you already have an idea?
I'm hoping an Electric will come back around to me.
Okay.
But I have to say, I really thought Yulong's team was looking to be like probably the strongest overall of everybody's.
Okay.
But the Victory Bell Palkia pick had me scratching my head. I can kind of understand Victory Bell and I don't think this will happen. I wasn't even thinking that we were going to get Adventure Week because the Raid Week fell during where Adventure Week has fallen in the past. I thought maybe that was replacing it. I don't know. But so Victory Bell has, water coverage that Raikou already has and is way stronger.
Right.
It does do ground rock, but Gyarados does ground rock. And Gyarados can easily 1v1, Pokemon with ground moves because of that double resistance that it has. To ground doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for him unless he's thinking Omastar and Kabutops, which I don't think we'll see again as T3s, just because they like to put the T1 Omanite and Kabuto if those do make an appearance, just because they can be shiny. Doesn't make any sense to me. He already has Gyarados. Really need Palkia to back up Gyarados. There's also a better water type in Floatzel still left if he wants a water type. I think what it's got Fire Blast. I don't think you want to use Palkia with Fire Blast to back up Entei. You shouldn't have to. If it comes to that, then something has gone horribly wrong probably.
Yeah.
With that run, you don't want to redo it. So Palkia seems like a complete waste of a pick. Victory Bell is not synergistic with Raikou or Gyarados. It could be synergistic with Entei for Piloswine in clear, maybe, but he had the chance to have the best electric team. He could have taken Zapdos or Luxray and completely finished out, completely backed up Raikou and then taken something else to build coverage in a different area. I don't think that Victory Bell and Palkia were particularly good choices.
Yeah, they're kind of... The Victory Bell, you got to think it's almost purely for like a Granbull time here because the Zapdos is still on the board. I do think sometimes you have some trouble when you are in either first pick or last pick, building consistent teams rather than just picking the best Pokemon that's still available to you. But that's not really the case this time. Like you said, the Zapdos was still on the board, and they went for the Victory Bell.
Doesn't need Victory Bell for Gramble anyway. He has Metagross.
Oh,
So
true. Yeah, what am I even thinking there?
to
So,
me, it's just like a total like I just don't understand. I don't understand these picks. I don't think they really add a lot of value to him. If we do for some reason get Omastar, if we get Kabutops, I will eat my words. Okay, I'll eat my words.
yeah.
If those come back in series, I'll eat my words. I don't think they will.
Right. That's why I love having you here, though, too, for the brutal truths and harsh opinions. For it's there. I think that there were definitely better picks on the board, and I think that, like you said, their draft was looking so good up until this point, that this was maybe a place where they took a step behind, with these two picks. So we'll see how that winds up, going off here. And you mentioned electric types. When it gets back to your pick, Banette is still on the board. So I guess, were you just not expecting Banette to still be there by the time it came around, and then just had to take it?
At this point, that I probably would need to flesh out my Fog team now. Banette is still on the table. If I don't take it, it wouldn't be there, and you can easily see this because Miss Magus goes next right after me, which is a worse version of it. So probably would have went. He would have wanted to pair it with his Gengar. I think that an electric type will come back to me. I think an electric type will come back to me because I didn't think that Abdo or Osamesta would want electric.
Yep.
It's clear to me that Dancing Koala has decided to go with grass as his option for water type coverage. So he doesn't really need electric either. Not to like skip too far ahead, but there was a Zapdos fight pick that happened to prevent me from having team, but I think I still do anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
You really can, in the seat that you're in, you really can read the table, because even though there's 6 more picks until you get to pick again, there's only 3 more drafters, and that's one of the things that I really love talking with you about, because you really do look at everyone else's team. You're looking at what they drafted, and you're seeing, okay, this might be a good pick for them, this might be a good pick for them, and you're really considering all that stuff before you make your pick. Like you said, Zapdos is still on the table. For sure, Zapdos is going to go before you wind up picking up Luxray next. And I'm kind of jumping ahead now too, but I do really think that you can afford to look ahead a little bit as you're drafting, because that's what you were actually doing in the moment. You weren't just thinking about that pick, you were thinking about the next 7 picks when it got back to you, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it was so Chapo and I are like discussing all these picks, right? And like at this point, there have been a number of attempts to spite pick me. Actually, I didn't mention this, but Absol, Shiny Balls before me was it was a deprivation pick, so that I wouldn't have, because I've used Absol in the past.
Right.
So he didn't want me to build such a strong Fog team with Honchkrow, Absol. It's looking kind of like a little scary there, I guess, for some other people. I don't know. But
you've used Banette in the past before too, right?
I never used Banette in.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I already had a level 40.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. Zapdos, we kind of consider that it might get sniped. It might get spite picked. And we were like, well, probably not. They're not gonna intentionally hurt their own team, right? Surely. Abdo's not gonna get rain.
Yeah.
So we'd probably be better off taking like a boosted grass type that he could pair with Shiftry. But no, he does take Zapdos.
And this is a little bit of a unique situation for this PokeDraft, with all the different side bets and crosstalk and things going on. I don't think it's crazy with your record to try to hamper your performance specifically, but in any other season, you probably get the Zapdos here.
Probably would get the Zapdos, but it doesn't really matter, and I pointed that out to Abdo. I'm like, you could have strengthened your own team. You didn't weaken me that much because I was still able to get Luxray, and I was gonna get one of those two no matter what. Dancing Koala is not going for electric at this
Right.
point.
He's got to hope that
It's very
Dancing
clear to me.
Koala also plays ball and takes out the Luxray as well.
It gets back to me, and its DPS is very comparable to Zapdos, in some ways better because it has Wild Charge. It's not quite as bulky. I'll need to like dodge a little bit more on like a Crawdaunt or something like that to get a little bit more out of it. But I mean, Electivire Luxray gives me a really strong electric team.
Yeah.
Probably stronger than anybody's grass team at this point.
Yeah, assuming you
in the
can get
water.
the,
So I'm really not worried.
the
Yeah.
rain, yeah. You will be taking back like boosted damage sometimes from Pokemon that you're fighting, but it shouldn't matter too much. And a lot of those have like different different fast moves rather that they could wind up using instead. So yeah, you wind up getting your Luxray, and then the quality of picks definitely starts to fall off. Ending out the draft here, I think. I guess the Latias isn't terrible. Porygon Z isn't terrible, but I'm not super happy about any of these things. I think the Staraptor is maybe the best of this bunch. Machamp goes really high, but like we've said, it's a total question mark. It's a total question mark what bosses we're going to see in general, and for that point, Machamp is almost a better pick in this draft than it might normally be. But this winds up being one of the bigger steals, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Machamp has got questionable use, just because fighting is not really like the most optimal way to approach most things. I mean, there's like there's some weird raid bosses out there, right? With like Sharpedo and Crawdaunt are also dark types, so you could go with Machamp into those. But he already built himself a grass team with Exeggutor and Groudon, so he sort of got overlapping coverage now. I guess the one thing I can think of where Machamp might shine, where other things don't, is Umbreon, which has only been a raid boss one time for 2 days. I don't really think I don't like to draft for unlikely raid bosses.
Yeah.
I just don't. So I didn't take any ground coverage except for Swampert I didn't take because it's a ground type. But yeah, Umbreon's not a likely raid boss. I think Jolteon doesn't really come around that often either. So I don't like to prepare. I mean, it's like to dedicate multiple picks to something that you probably won't have seems like wasteful to me, where you could like have stronger coverage in more likely areas. So I don't usually take fighting. I mean, I do have a fighting type in Blaziken. That's not why I picked it.
Right.
Right. After Machamp, we see Rapidash go, which is really now we've scraped the bottom barrel of fire types. But I don't think you should have picked Rapidash. I don't think you need a backup fire type to Moltres.
No.
So it seems to me like that was probably wasted coverage.
I think so. And the numbers agree here as well that Rapidash. Okay, it's not quite the biggest reach technically, but I think this is I don't really think it's draft viable. The wheel, we have Scyther Vileplume.
I don't know what's happening anymore with Yilong at this point.
Oh, right.
So Scyther adds nothing to his team. I mean, I'm trying to like wrap my head around this. If Scyther's main use is for, I don't know, like psychic maybe. Does he need another anti-psychic Mong? He already has his Mewtwo. He has Raikou. I think he should have taken something with them. They both have Shadow Ball. You're probably gonna want something that's fog boosted if you could get it. So Scyther just doesn't really make sense to me. It's not very good DPS. It suggests maybe he wants to do Raichu in the rain, perhaps. I don't know.
Are these more hate drafts? Is there another side bet going on? That's what I think must be happening. That there's some other thing that we're missing, and he's hate drafting for someone else here. If you really can't crack this code, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know if he's hate drafting for someone. His team is already so strong. I think that just drafting normally would have basically been hate drafting. I mean, like that's going to make his team as strong as it could be. Vileplume pick, it makes sense for Victory Bell, but like that is just extraneous coverage. He already has Water Electric
Yeah.
to
Best
cover all the things that you would want to cover with grass. So I don't understand it.
best defense is going to be a good offense. I think that sometimes when you are like the second or third to last drafter, then you can really get into the hate picks that are beneficial to your team, where you take something because you know that somebody after you is going to take it, and then you can maybe get a little bit more of a steal when it comes back to you. But if you're sitting on the wheel, clearly that's not what's going on here. I think that they may have just messed up a little bit on the Victory Bell Palkia pick, and then this is kind of snowballing on that now they're feeling that they can't complete some other teams, so they're just rushing to get some good picks. It'll be interesting, and maybe we'll wind up talking to Yalong at some point throughout this process and see what was going on with those picks there.
I don't know. I'm sure he must have a justification
Yeah.
for it. I'm sure maybe it'll make sense when he explains it. To me, I'm still mystified by it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to pound on him too much. We have Tangela. I don't think I would take Tangela if I was Legion Commander because he has Breloom and Tangrowth. Tangrowth is very bulky,
Yeah.
so it's really he shouldn't need more than those two picks to do anything that's weak to grass. Probably would want to focus on something else, perhaps. Ryogo, which pairs with Machamp. I don't know that we need double fighting coverage, but he has it
Yep.
just in
Yep.
case.
And that's kind of reasonable. Picking picking up Lucario in the ninth round, I think this is about where Lucario goes. But yeah, picking up finishing up a really weird team in these last picks is a good use of your ninth round pick, I think. I don't fault the Lucario pick. And the Dialga is technically a steal, and it's also a steel type, but nothing super exciting here out of the Dialga, I don't think.
I don't like Dialga.
Yeah.
It only if you're taking it because it's a steel type.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking to use it, I guess, against Granbull really because it's not like that she needs an ice type counter or a rock type counter when she's got
Right.
Heatran and
Already has
Kyogre.
Heat Ran, exactly.
Like much better. Um, is to me it doesn't really add that much. I mean, if she's looking maybe for Granbull, I guess it accomplishes that. She kind of she took Magnezone earlier, but didn't back up Magnezone. I think you
Oh, I
probably would
missed
want
that.
to do
I
that
missed that,
for
yeah.
water types.
A lot of steel coverage, yeah. If it starts snowing and there's Gramble, I don't know. Probably still not beating a
I'll be worried.
Metagross. Yeah, probably still not beating a Metagross there, right?
No. Okay. Next we see Kadabra. So I'm the Black Metal has finally decided to finish his Machamp team very late.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, I I I talked to him about this, but I think the margin that he has over me on Scyther will not exceed the margin I have over him on Machamp,
Yeah.
just because of his Machamp team. It seems it's probably one of the weakest in the division,
Mm-hmm.
which is just perplexing, just because we know Machamp is going to be a raid boss.
Yeah, like we said, that's the only thing we know. Yeah, I don't think Flagon is super exciting here either. It is, I guess, an okay kind of last round pick here. I think it's better than their 10th round pick for sure, which I think is pretty terrible. But yeah, getting just like some really low tier ground types here at the end. Spoilers, it's Camerupt coming up next, but yeah, nothing. Flygon, I guess, at least puts up solid times, but it's nothing too great.
Yeah, it's questionable.
Yeah.
Maybe this is his. I know he doesn't need it for Raichu.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, boosted Flygon has nothing on unboosted Giratina Origin. It's
Right.
not close.
Right.
This is like, I mean, to me, this seems like he succumbed to the Jolteon fear mongering, which we always do every season.
Yep. Yep.
Is the most annoying raid boss. It's only got one counter to it,
Yeah.
ground. So Flygon, I guess, is like a maybe his like insurance that he can actually do Jolteon. I don't think that we're gonna get it this time.
Yeah.
Kyogre is slated to be a raid boss. We didn't know that
Yeah.
at the time, but I don't think that Jolteon has actually ever appeared alongside Kyogre as a counter.
I can't
Interestingly
I
enough.
can't confirm. I'm not super sure on that. Yeah, I think it is a different set. For a while, we were just seeing Jolteon randomly pop up. It's also super hard to beat because of just how the raid boss HP formula and defense formula winds up shaking out. That it winds up being a really tough Pokemon, but before we were seeing it just pop up randomly when the Ho-Oh bosses would come back. And I think that we have a different new set of default bosses now. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head. But we had like a brief thing for an hour a few weeks ago where we got a different set of bosses. And Jolteon wasn't in that group anymore. So I think that also makes Jolteon a little bit less likely to come back, though they're mostly on top of their stuff now. Who knows? That part's tough to say,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think you really have to count on Jolteon, but it's definitely more common than Umbreon, which we were just talking about too.
Right. I'm not looking to build a Jolteon team myself.
Yep.
So when it comes back to me, it's time to finish. It's time to finish my Gengar team, just my anti-psychic, anti-ghost team.
Mm-hmm.
So I take Drifblim. Drifblim is the best left on the table.
Mm-hmm.
My beloved Haunter had already been taken,
Mm-hmm.
of course, by Osamesta, and I knew that would happen. But between the two of us, Bennett is the better choice, just because it lives longer, so
And there's a really
contributes more to the raid.
there's an interesting thing here too with Driftblim. Part of its drawback potentially is that it is flying type, so it's going to be weak to the Alolan Raichu. But so is Honchkrow, so you're already kind of trying to not get difficult electric moves there. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing that Honchkrow and Driftblim both are part flying and then part Raichu counter.
Right. I mean, for Raichu, pretty much always want Psychic anyway. Even if they took neutral damage, the electric moves are very annoying. Thunder Punch is very spammy. Wild Charge hits really hard. So, I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna. That's just sort of like grinding out to find Psychic,
Yeah. And
basically. Drifblim's gone. Next, we've got Crawdaunt to complete his Fog team. Or his anti-psychic, anti-ghost team, pairing with Miss Magus and Gengar. Default Crawdaunt, I mean, there's not really a lot of good quality options left
yeah, I think
on the
Crawdaunt
table.
is. I mean, mathematically we see it. It's one of the like most in line with the collective hive mind picks that we've seen in a while with a zero steel reach there. And yeah, this is about where you want to take something like a Crawdaunt up. Same kind of thing, like you were saying, just and I think I brought up earlier too. There's so many fog boosted things on the table in these last few picks that I think that kind of is the meta as we see it as far as PokeDraft goes. There's just too many things to really hate draft or cut them off, and they're all kind of similar power level that for a while we've really seen these ninth and 10th round picks be comprised of fog boosted things and then rock throwers. And I think we see a similar thing this draft too.
Yeah.
And then water types as well, right?
Yeah, water types tend to, I think, go a little bit later too. Next, we've got Skunk Tank.
Yeah.
Worked for the last draft.
Were you hoping
I
to get this back?
At this point, I realized when I didn't get Sharpedo was going to be my to my water team, and it was also going to spawn off the next link in my dark fog chain, right? I wanted Sharpedo. Sharpedo has good roll compression for that. Didn't get Sharpedo. If I had gotten Sharpedo, I probably would have built a little Gramble coverage, but I didn't, and so I decided to scrap that, not taking any poison types. So Skunk Tank is not very strong as a dark type. Certainly not better than Drifblim. I decided not to compromise on backing up Honchkrow and Bannet.
Do you think that there's Do you think that there's any world where you could have taken Skunk Tank and then gotten a similar? I'm not sure what else would have been on the board at that point, but you'd be losing a lot as far as your ghost coverage. But maybe something like a Muck Alolan as your 10th pick.
Yeah, so I can't do that because I'm already committed to finishing water, and I feel like I might need it.
Right.
I don't want to have be in a situation where I really only have one counter into something. If I take Muck Alolan, and Skunk Tank, okay, fine. I've got Dark and Poison finished there.
Yeah.
But I don't have water. If I took one each with a Skunk Tank and then maybe Omastar Vaporeon last, then I don't like having sparse coverage. I'd rather build strong cores of teams that I know can do things, and if I miss out on coverage for certain things, it's just a risk that I'm going to have to take.
And you really don't want to. I mean, at that point, if you can't finish your dark team, you've basically you've mitigated significantly the first pick Honchkrow that you've taken, and that is part of the trick with some of these fog boosted Pokemon. They all really are pretty glass cannony with your Honchkrow and Banette that you've picked up. So yeah, they do need a little bit more help there, and you wind up taking the Drifblim for them. Yeah, I just know that Skunk Tank did so well and was able to basically solo for you, right?
Yeah, the Gramble, it was strong for me in that regard. If there's a different universe where I have Sharpedo, maybe I have Haunter to pair back with Skunk Tank, the good old team back together again. I don't know. Sharpedo went to the Kyogre user, which was kind of annoying to me. I was just like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, really? Is that necessary?
Yeah.
I mean, apparently they think so.
That Claydol run is going to be pretty impressive.
No, for sure. I guess moving on, Floatzel was taken as a spite pick against me.
Are you sure this isn't just them picking up another pair of Pokemon here?
This is a complete spite. Because Osmessa is not going to get rain in Morocco this time of year.
Yeah.
So he was trying to limit the number of options against me that I could take to finish out my water team with Swampert that I started. Which he told me straight up, so there's no mystery here, nothing to infer.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's completely explicit.
Celebi winds up giving Abdu a pretty interesting team here with both Celebi and Elemental Mewtwo, which I said is basically like Mew. Then just an interesting thing to get both of those on your team here. We can talk about Omastar a little bit as well. I know that that one was funny for you with the stipulation that you have going on. You have a Rock Throw Omastar, like Super Legacy, and that might help you win some side bets and things.
Right, so I have a side bet with Chapo Trap. We're going to use my team to compete against the raid bosses that are chosen for each round. So whoever puts up the best times with my team will win. If he wins, then I have to transfer out my team of 10. If I win, then he has to transfer out his team of 10. So there's pretty high stakes behind this one. Omastar was something I was considering along with Floatzel, but I'm super glad that Osamesta did take Floatzel. This worked out perfectly for me because Omastar is now the best water type still left, so it makes sense in that regard. Also, I've got the bonus Scyther coverage, which wasn't something I felt was really important to do, but we could have Scyther. And I have a double rock Omastar into it, so why not take it?
Was this a blessing in disguise then, that the Floatzel was hate drafted from you? Obviously, Floatzel is a much higher tier pick, but you get an Omastar. Is that the worst thing for you?
I'm very happy with this because like a lot of the
Yeah,
strong rock types went very early. They're going to beat me on Scyther, but I think that I'll put up a decent enough score to stay in, and then I can make points back in other areas. So to have my round 10 pick keep me in the running, I think is pretty clutch.
for sure. Yeah, definitely one of the better round 10 picks here. I think it's also interesting to note the average draft pick, like steal reach quotient that we've kind of talked about. For Omastar, it's not that high, but one of the reasons then you do see the average draft pick for Haunter be so much higher in the top pods, and then also just in this draft, is that legacy move set with Haunter having two different legacy moves that you want to have access to both of them. So Omastar is the same kind of thing, but it winds up being picked up a little bit more frequently than that, because it's just a round 10th pick anyways. So not a huge jump there.
All right. Shall we run down the last few picks?
Yeah, we see Camerupt is garbage.
I don't.
Kabutops.
Terrence is not good. Kabutops is.
A
It
worse
has waterfall
Omastar.
now. It has
Oh,
waterfall.
okay.
That's move. It
Okay.
makes it a little bit better as like a fire type counter.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if he needs Scyther backup, he could go with like a Legacy Fury Cutter, Stone Edge into it. I don't. If 1v1 with Rampardos though, that will be optimal for him. So I would probably not be happy until that happens. We see Soul Rock go. I guess there's a couple people who are now fearing Scyther.
Mm-hmm.
So Soul Rock goes. Problem with Soul Rock is that it's weak to 2/3 of Scyther's charge moves in Fury Cutter and Night Slash. So they probably won't have fun there. They're all 3 bars. It's a lot of dodging.
Yeah.
Jolteon. Jolteon went because I think that was just a shout out pick to me. He doesn't need Jolteon, but like Jolteon is kind of like my Pokemon. I've taken Jolteon in almost like every season. I decided
Yeah.
not to take it because I mean Luxray is there, and I'm in this to win. So
Yeah.
as nice as it would have been to have a cute pick like Jolteon,
The other thing about Jolteon too is now we have Magnezone, which kind of does push back the lower tier electric type, which Jolteon is at this point, just a little bit farther down the board. So if this was last season, Magnezone wasn't there, so then Zapdos goes earlier, Electivire goes earlier, and Luxray goes earlier, and you might wind up taking Jolteon.
yeah, no, for sure. I'm in a different universe. May have taken Jolteon.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to just because like I took Honchkrow, which is Chapo Trap's mascot, and then
Oh, okay. Okay.
Jolteon's my mascot. It'd been kind of cool to have them both
Yeah.
on the same team, but like Luxray is just so much better. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't pass that up just to have like a cute little tie in there.
Right. At that point, you're not taking Luxray, so you're. I don't even know what you would take at that point. I don't. I don't think. I mean, there's no way you take Jolteon as your eighth pick. So I don't know what we're dealing with there.
I think this worked out really well for me.
Yeah, I think so.
Moving on, we've got Muck Alola.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reasonable 10th round pick with the
Mm-hmm.
dark poison coverage. His it backs up Tyranitar. Tyranitar is very bulky. Doesn't need a whole lot of help. He doesn't have anything to help Alolan and Muck in terms of poison coverage. So if he does, I mean, he's got Sludge Bomb Breloom and I guess Sludge Bomb Tangela if you want to go there. So if Granbull did come, he has like some modest poison coverage. I don't think Granbull's coming, so I'm
Yeah.
going to assume he probably took Muckalola as a helper to Tyranitar. He also has Deox attack with Dark Pulse, so
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
interesting.
probably rounds out his anti-ghost, anti-psychic team. Then we see Yilong with the very last pick take Lunatone, which is clearly a Scyther coverage move, but has the same problems as Solrock. It's weak to Night Slash. It's weak to X-Scissor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, These
Yeah.
R3 bars, Lunatone and Solrock are not particularly bulky, so it's going to be very difficult for him to 1v1 that raid. It's probably going to need backup, so his time will suffer. Not really much else to say about those.
Yeah, I think that these last four picks here are all actually pretty solid. We typically see Solrock and Lunatone as well as Muck all get picked up. There's only like a few things potentially still on the board that are worth considering. I think like maybe Mew gets picked up sometimes. Maybe a Blastoise would have gotten picked up. And we do see some meme and kind of silly picks in the 10th spot, but this can also be make or break point. So as much as like we're joking around about it, stuff like Driftblim and Omastar is going to be key for you, and that's where we saw you get a lot of your edge last season, just in those ninth and 10th round picks, still being on point and not really faltering. Whereas I think you have 10 good picks here, right? And we can't really say the same for everybody, but who knows? We have no idea what the bosses are going to be yet this season, and it should be an exciting one, I think.
Oh, we'll have to see. I am pleased with my team. I feel like if I had to do it all over again, it probably would come out, the same way. I think I have very strong coverage in a diverse number of areas. I don't have complete coverage. I don't think you can have complete coverage.
Yeah.
If you did, you're definitely sacrificing somewhere. So you have to make that call as to whether it's going to be worth it or not.
For sure.
We'll have to see. I mean, I clearly sacrificed on the Scyther coverage. A lot of people thought I might take Tyranitar second to back up Honchkrow, but I'm not a big Tyranitar proponent myself. I know some people are more enthusiastic about it than I am.
Yeah. That would have been pretty interesting. Yeah, get you a nice bulky dark type Pokemon there. And Tyranitar did kind of fall back this season, so we'll see where that goes. Any other interesting notes about your resources? I don't think you really grabbed any super random Pokemon or anything here. It seems like other than maybe Luxray and Driftblim, you probably have everything here powered up already.
I have everything powered up except for Driftblim was the only thing I had to max out for the season.
Okay.
Oh, and Blastburn Blaziken, I had to do that too. So
Okay, but
I had to max out two things, and then I
and
actually
Blastburn Blaziken you're probably going to max out regardless, so that's not as huge of a deal.
one thing I did do in addition to those is I double moved a Legacy Omastar, not the Rock Throw one though. It was a Water Gun Rock Slide. I double moved it in
Okay.
case prizes where I feel like it'll be faster to finish the raid with Rock Slide than to charge up another Hydro Pump.
Okay. Yeah,
Ability
that makes
there.
sense.
Chapo, I hope you're not listening to this. I don't know if he has a Rock Slide. I'm not sure if he has a Legacy Rock Slide
Yeah.
Omastar. I know he doesn't have Rock Throw, so I've got that leg up in the Scyther department. But yeah,
Cool.
that's a little thing I've decided to employ just in case. We'll see.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, David, for joining us. This is a lot of thoughts on this season's Poke Draft, but that's why I wanted to talk with you because you just have such a mind for Poke Draft, and it's going to be really exciting, I think, this season to see how all of this plays out and how all of these teams wind up doing. So maybe I will talk to you again at some point during the season or a winner's interview at the end. We'll see how it all shakes out for you. But
Fingers crossed.
yeah, thank you very much for joining on that note. I'm NoLucksGiven. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.